We'll come, the next two items I think we can do quickly before valedictories. We have item number, where am I? 13, which is a process-only report on the preparation of the Council annual report. Ross Clough will move that. Kathy Casey will second it. We're going to deal with this in depth in the confidential session, but if there are any questions that people want to ask now, I don't want to exclude them. If Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Your Worship. And these questions I have sent in advance. I just think it's probably important to have it on public record. It's to do with the cladding of 135 Albert Street and travel expenses with senior management. And I think our CFO or CEO's prepared with the answers, but I think it's worth having it on record because it's positive news. Yep. So my question is just the recladding of 135 Albert Street had a budget around it, and I just wondered how that project performed overall, if it came in under budget, and what those numbers were, is the first question.
Right, shall we take them one at a time? And you might like to give an indication, I guess, what we actually paid for that building, what the repairs cost and what the current value is.
Yep, through the mayor, I can give you 2 out of 3. So we purchased the building for $104 million. That was discounted price based on some of the initial work we'd done in due diligence process. And that's public record. The works, we did come here and sought budget for there was some safety and enabling works, which was about $4.7 million. There was then the substantive works, which was $27 million to replace all of the cladding and actually do some security and some safety works while we're up there, including the fittings. So $31.7 million. In the end, the project was on time and was $2.7 million under budget. Just adding another bonus there was also the granite that was removed. You'll actually find it's actually being used now throughout the region. Those that could be actually held in complete form were actually being used in things like seating and walls, and those that were actually partly cracked or couldn't actually be saved in the original form quite often have actually been ground down, and you'll find those in pathways around places like Onehunga Park and things.
Thank you.
I think if I remember the figures, and I've just been checking with my chief executive, we paid $104 million for the building. Yes. We spent about $31 million on it. 31 million in repairs, is that correct?
It was 29.
29?
Yeah, versus a budget of 31.7.
Okay. And while you may be reluctant to put a value on the building at the moment, I understand it's north of 200 million. So to Len Brown and to the councillors that were around the table, you made a decision that actually has a huge financial upside. Yes. Councillor Sayers, thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, for the elaboration as well. That's interesting and important to know. The second question is just around, if we look at our recruitment, we have to get some of our talent from outside of the Auckland region, and therefore, those employees need to travel to Auckland for their duties. So my question was around the first 3 tiers of senior management and the parent of Auckland Council. If those staff have to travel, are any of those costs, are there any additional costs on Auckland ratepayers in terms of their travel expenses around Coral Club membership air flights? And, or if they're driving, are there accommodation costs that we're having to pick up for those employees as part of their remuneration packages and allowances? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've got all of those questions in your head. I'll ask the Chief Executive, Councillor Sayers, to answer those questions.
Through you, Chair, we can confirm that we do not pay any of those expenses to get from wherever you live outside of the region to work. So they're all paid for by the individuals, and we don't pay for Coral Club memberships for anybody.
Thank you. Those were the questions. Any further questions? If not, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. And we'll have you gentlemen back this afternoon after the valedictories. The last item before we move to the valedictories is a summary of the governing body and committee information, memoranda and briefing. There's usually no discussion about that. Councillor Darby will move. You'll second, Councillor Collins. And Councillor Simpson, did you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I was just going to draw attention to the fact that we've got some good news, of course, in the attachments around the quality advice. We've got the highest score ever from NZIER as part of the value for money. Sorry, start again. Sorry. Oh,
Do you have is there something dominating your thinking at the moment, Councillor?
There is. I'll start this again. I would like to acknowledge and thank those members of the governing body who sit on the quality advice political working panel. As part of the report that goes with this, we have received an input, adding things like financial implications and risks and mitigations to agenda items. We have received the highest grading ever in the history of Auckland Council from NZIER as a result of those additional work streams. So I want to thank my colleagues and the local board colleagues who joined that, and I think it's another success, Your Worship, at the end of our term.
And thank you very much for drawing our attention and those that might be listening online to it. I think too seldom do we celebrate where we have excelled. And we ought to do that. Right, we'll put that resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Councillors and ladies and gentlemen at the back of the room, we come to a very special time in the life of this council as we meet with this membership for the last time before the local body election results are announced on the 12th of October. And it's an occasion, I guess, in one sense of sadness to depart, to farewell two of our longest standing councillors that are not seeking re-election today. But it's also an occasion to celebrate the huge contribution that both of those members have made, not only to the Auckland Council, but to the legacy councils of Waitakere and Manukau. Could I also acknowledge Mayor Len Brown. Len, where are you? Can you stand up? Because I think this is the first time you've been back at council with us. And 3 years ago, you were doing your valedictory in the same room at about the same time. But if I can put on record my gratitude for your service as well as Mayor of Manukau and the inaugural Mayor of the new Auckland Council. I think in many ways you had the toughest job, taking what was 8 councils together, melding them into one council with all of the problems, all of the challenges that involved. So if I can acknowledge you and thank you for your efforts on behalf of our city, we have not forgotten those. Right, I want to welcome in particular the friends and family members of Councillor Penny Holst and Councillor Sir John Walker here today. In particular, Penny, your husband Paul and son Rob. We always think of the spouses of councillors because they're the unsung heroes. They don't see near enough of their partners, particularly at this stage of the political cycle. So a big thanks to you, Paul, and Sir John for your wife Helen, who is here today, and your children Caitlin, Tim and Richard, and Elizabeth and Elizabeth's husband Matt. So a big thanks for the families. Sometimes it's not pleasant being a family man. Let's have a round of applause for families. The families are the ones that have to sit there quietly while their parent or their spouse is sometimes receiving particularly unfair treatment through the public arena. But that is a job that we go into with our eyes wide open as elected representatives. We ask for it, we're prepared to take it, but it is often tough on the family. So I really sincerely want to acknowledge you as family members here today. Our first valedictory is from Councillor Penny Holst. And as everybody around the table is aware, Penny has served 27 years in local government, 16 on the Waitakere Community Board and then the Waitakere City Council, where she became the Deputy Mayor, and then 9 years on this council, of which 6 you have also served as Deputy Mayor. I have to say that Penny's achievements are legend, absolutely, and I guess the thing that I think most of is her ability to shepherd through the Auckland Plan and the Auckland Unitary Plan. We've done some tough things on this council, but I don't think they match that effort, Penny. And I also want to thank you for your contribution on environmental issues, which has been absolutely profound. You've made a huge difference, and you must be really proud of what that has resulted in. Penny is a proud Westie. She has shown absolute commitment to her task. She has worked hard. She has been totally professional, and she has furthered the cause of making our city a better place for everyone. And Penny, you will be hugely missed. The floor is now yours.
First of all, I just briefly want to thank everyone for the chance to make this speech. I also just want to acknowledge the protest that we've just had in this room, and you know, the fact that democracy is alive and well, and despite the hurt and the trauma and the politics behind the group that were here, it felt really fitting to me to have a protest at my last meeting. And it also shows that this chamber is a place that actually welcomes its community, and it welcomes protest. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for doing that so graciously. It also speaks to our relationship with our treaty partners in the way that the protest has been accepted. And again, thanks to our wonderful Te Waka Angamoa group, part of council, who help us manage those sometimes really challenging relationships, to get it right with iwi, to get it right with hapu, to get it right with our Māori partnerships. So kia ora and thank you. So, to also just quickly a note to the media bench. Thank you, media. I think it was the lovely Simon Wilson who said that reporters' blood runs cold when they're asked to get a soundbite from Penny Holst. And I make apologies, kind of tongue-in-cheek, for the last 27 years with no good soundbites. I don't think you're going to get one today, so just saying. Who knew? And so John, you might be feeling the same. Who knew how hard it was to write a valedictory speech? It feels like it needs to be meaningful and resonant with wisdom and sparkling with wit. And you go on, you know, the internet, and there's all this fabulousness on there. So spoiler alert, in Politics 101, manage expectations. It's not going to be that. But, you know, once I started to think of all the amazing people that I'd worked with, my speech veered very dangerously to the sort of cliff of over-emotional Oscar acceptance speech. So I sort of pulled back from that, and then realised I was veering into the wonderful Rowan Atkinson, Father of the Bride speech, which anyone who's seen that will know that he roasts everybody in the room roundly and then raises a toast to the caterers. So it's not going to quite be that. So I even though yay for the caterers and yay for the 9 years of caramel slice, I have the figure to prove it. So with that hopefully managed and expectations out of the way, I do want to try and capture in the time that I've got, and I am going to take that time, so please sit comfortably, to capture my deep belief in the importance of local government, and my huge debt of gratitude to all the politicians, staff and community who've made my 27 years such a privilege. It's been an amazing role. You know, it is hard, but I've pretty much loved every minute of it, and it has been an incredible ride. I first got involved in politics out west as a protester. and organising my community to protest the extension of the landfill in Swanson. And I rebel-roused and filled the school halls several times, and we painted signs and we printed leaflets, and I led the protest at council meetings, and we stormed in very much like today and held up signs. And, you know, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I really found my passion there. It was a real buzz, speaking truth to authority and being celebrated by my community for it. And there's nothing like standing and speaking with 200 angry people behind you, and the media loving you for it. So that was an amazing buzz for a couple of months. And then two incredible Waitakere councillors, one of whom is here, Dorothy Wilson and Helen Haslam, who would have been here, invited me into council and said, let's talk about a way forward. The protest is great, but what are we actually going to do? And then followed a long mediation process under the new RMA. And I led the community from their perspective in the mediation. Helen led the council. We were supported by the wonderful Tony McGill, who's here, and John Dragicevic from the staff perspective, and chaired on by the visionary Anne McGee, who's here as well. And we ended up getting a 98% physical sign-off from the entire Swanson community to extend the landfill for 3 years. We managed that in a way that hadn't been done before, and it was the first mediation under the RMA. So for that, I realised that if you rolled your sleeves up and worked together, you could achieve amazing things. And I stood for council, and, you know, I'm still here, either by complete lack of imagination or just good luck. But I tell this story because that's remained my true north and my map for politics over 27 years. It is thrilling and fun, and, you know, being a populist is easy, and having an angry crowd behind you is really great. But the real bravery is rolling your sleeves up and tackling a way forward, to have the vision and do the hard work to bring those people into the process and try and find a solution, because that means actually giving up some of that power, giving up some of that populism, and actually managing expectations down to try and find a way through. And you may notice a bit of a recurring theme through the speech around that. So Waitakere, and, you know, the Waitakere whānau who are here, thank you and God bless you. Waitakere was an amazing council. I try to write this bit with, you know, taking the rose-tinted glasses off, but I'm afraid when it comes to Waitakere, they're kind of firmly welded on. And I know they are for ex-Waitakere staff, because we still hug in the lift, and I think the rest of you all think that we're completely bonkers, but that Westie bond is there and will be there for some time. So rose-coloured glasses are the only way of talking about that 18 years. With amazing strategic and visionary thinkers like our amazing Anne McGee, who's here, Dr. Graham Campbell, and Dr. Sue Bidrose, and creatives like Wally Thomas, who never allowed us to take ourselves too seriously, cheered on with our darling Fiona Cunningham, and the ever-pragmatic and experienced John Dragg. And our community partnerships team, Bob Harvey had an absolute dream team to achieve. He had good councillors supported by great staff, and we did brave things. We protected the Waitakere Rangers via the Rangers Protection Act. I think that took years off your life, Dr. Campbell. That was a work of love and passion. We embraced great urban design. We laid down the blueprint for Hobsonville. We pushed double tracking. We undergrounded the rail in New Lynn. We pushed the boundaries with our self-styled Al Gore of the South Pacific, which is Bob, in case you hadn't noticed. He used to call himself the Great Godwit, and we said, was that with an F? I was very, very proud. No, we love him. I do. If you ever get to see this, Bob, we do love you, but, you know, you just pushed our boundaries sometimes. I was, however, so proud to be his deputy mayor, taking over from Dorothy Wilson and the scarily capable Carolyn Stone. Project Twin Streams laid down kilometres of cycleways, again, thanks to Tony Mig. And that was before anyone was thinking about cycleways. They thought we were bonkers out west. You know, what are you doing cleaning up streams and putting cycleways through the back blocks of Henderson, for God's sake? Who's ever going to ride a bike in Henderson? Well, it's fantastic, and it was ahead of its time. We also had a heck of a lot more fun than we see in this council chamber. We had Miss Ribena launch our district plan. You know, we actually laughed at council meetings. We had wine at the end of our evening council meetings where we would all actually resolve some of the stress that had been built up during the evening at the council meeting. We aired issues and we resolved them. And we also loved our protesters, and we've got some sort of legendary stories of protesters, including the one group who stormed the council chambers, and we said, that's great, you hold your signs up out on the deck, outside, and then we quickly locked the door. Anyway, but they were cool, they were fine, but we sent in beer and pizza, and after the appropriate amount of time and enough beer, I think it was your idea, Wally Thomas, they quietly all came in, because of course they needed to use the loo, but they, you know, it was a great experience, but that was very Waitakere. And our Bob was not backward in coming forward about his feelings about protesters, and he did allegedly bear his bum at one of our most annoying ones. Carolyn and I actually baked him a chocolate cake with a chocolate bum on it, and he wasn't that amused. But Bob always did enjoy a good joke as long as he was the one making the jokes. But, you know, when you do think back to those days, one of the days that even Bob was floored was when a dog arrived with a very polite note pinned to its collar blaming Bob for her being pregnant, which she arrived in a taxi, which you have to say kind of, you know, that really took the cake. But again, that's the kind of Westie style of protest. So amalgamation did cut across that 18 years of community development and partnerships, and this had a profound effect on the West and all of us. So this 9 years of trying to make Rodney Hyde's version of what was a very good proposal in the Royal Commission into something better has been a huge challenge. His approach to amalgamation was, in my view, ill-conceived and a half-cocked version of the Royal Commission's thoughtful approach. However, and kia ora mai, Len, it's so lovely to see you here. Len Brown was exactly the mayor that Auckland needed at the time, bringing those 7 tribal areas together. His relentless good humour and his singing, yep, so sometimes it was appropriate, and sometimes Len would just have to say, mate, not singing now, not quite the right time. But he does sing beautifully. But he energised that first term of council in a way that I don't think anyone else could have. And we started pulling together the Auckland plan, which was the right thing to do. And he had a mayoral office that was an amazing team. The ever unflappable Phil Wilson at the helm and the wise head of Teresa Stratton, Glyn Jones, holding things together when things got a bit rough, and we know they did get a bit rough. But I also just want to pause for a moment and acknowledge Penny Webster, who was such a rock during some of those challenging times, and I think is still very missed around the council table. So we worked hard to pull Auckland together and pull the plans together that were needed. And one of the key people in all of that was, or is, and still is, the amazing Penny Perrott and her team who worked on the unitary plan. If asked about anything that I feel most proud of, I am incredibly proud of the unitary plan. It was brave and it's done some very, very tough stuff. Those were some of the toughest community meetings I've ever been to. I mean, I've stood in packing houses in Oratia with, you know, not quite guns around the walls, but scythes and axes and very sharp agricultural implements, and had to tell orchardists that, no, you're not going to be able to subdivide easily because of the RMA and council processes. And, you know, they've yelled at me loudly, and then they've hugged me and given me a cup of tea and told me to drive safely on the way home. St Heliers, however, not so much. The meetings in St Heliers and Milford and some of the meetings on the shore were probably some of the most abusive, angry and menacing meetings I've ever been to. I've never been scared at a meeting, but I was scared at St Heliers, and that just speaks to me of something that's actually going on in our city. Why are people driven to this level of anger when you're simply saying we want to build affordable houses for our kids and the next generation. I know that Desley's done an amazing job of settling that community down, but if it hadn't have been for Generation Zero and the incredible bravery standing up at those meetings, every meeting they turned up and asked about what about the next generation, we could have lost some really critical decisions in the plan. So this brings me back to that original point, is when do you fight alongside your community? Or when do you actually look at the wider issues of all of Auckland, of future generations, and of the voices who are not at those angry meetings? Have a wee looky look on social media and you'll see here is all my colour, face all my colour, demographic all the same. We as elected members have to think of all Auckland, not just the people like us. So one of my huge disappointments is watching the personal politics that have overtaken the focus of city building. And I will go there, guys, the A team, B team nonsense, you know, local boards versus governing body. We all stand for office to be the very best representative of our community we can be. But those opportunities are squandered with petty politics, the win-lose, the gotcha politics that seems to be built up by social media takes over. And we do have a lot of issues that are dividing our city at the moment, but within each of those issues is a solution. It's not that hard. If we, rather than focusing, and maybe the circle doesn't help, Mr. Mayor, it focuses us in on ourselves. We need to find a different way. And I always feel the urge to leap up at the meetings and go, look out of the windows, it's actually out there. It's them we're working for, not to score points off each other. So social media has made it much harder. And the last few years have been very, very tough. People bring their own facts to the meeting, not just their own opinion. And I'm hoping that for the sake of our wonderful city, the reset button is pressed on those issues for the next council, because I think the community have actually had a guts full of negativity. There's so much positive work to be done, and my honest hope is that that becomes the focus of this council. That's when we're at our best, is when we're actually all pulling together, because there's a big shopping list. There's climate change. We have to build those resilient communities for all of Auckland. That is the really big issue that we need to all work together on. Regional equity around open space, sport and rec, community facilities. We need to look across the whole region and make sure everyone is sharing that equitably. And that might mean less for some areas and a heck of a lot more for others, because they don't have it. And people will need to learn to share. The challenge to be a leader in New Zealand on waste, and you know, our plastic mountain is growing. Our Indonesian beaches can take no more. Our community need wise and brave leadership in the waste area. Parul Sud is probably the best waste manager in New Zealand. Get behind her and let's keep that going. We've got a government who want to do the right thing. Let's grab that opportunity. And I think we need to build pride and hope in our city, where everyone feels the joy of success, regardless of what area it happens in. If Auckland's doing well, that's awesome, even if it's not your patch. And on the shopping list for me is kindness, inclusion and safety. How about Auckland become a visibly inclusive city? Wouldn't that be great if that's who we said we were going to be? So some of that might involve putting down the social media screens and actually just getting back with the community. And it's no secret that Phil and I probably didn't get off to the best of starts. I thought his Environment and Community Committee was a collection of all the stuff left over from the really big boys committees, and that, you know, he just threw everything in the bit of a jumble heap and asked me to chair it. But it's turned out to be the best committee I've ever chaired, Phil, and thank you. We have joked, though, that it is the committee that ends up with every tricky, challenging and complex issue. I'll think, oh, thank God, that's going to go to planning. No, it circles a little bit and boom, it ends up back on environment and community. And Alf and I just roll our eyes at the agenda run through as we deal with Kauri dieback, the Rahui, 1080, glyphosate, cats, 5G, golf courses, climate change, cats, library reviews, trees, crumbling historic places, more cats, and Ihimato, bucket racing, water quality, you know, the list goes on. These have been some very, very thorny issues. Some of them we've addressed and some of them we haven't fully addressed, and as I say, I can see resolution and hope in all of these. But all the way through, our amazing staff, they are our stunt doubles. You know, we trumpet the things that we think we've done. If we're really honest, the staff have done the mahi, they've written the report, they've come up with the recommendations, they've helped us frame up what we're doing. So, you know, that's for me when I think of the stunt double analogy. It works really well. So, you know, Rachel Callaghan, Phil Brown, helping us go through the incredibly challenging time of Kāori dieback and the Rāhui. Your wonderful Babs in your office, Phil, extraordinary, and Viv, who was there before her. Our Mace Ward, who never runs out of patience. I don't know how he does it with all the complexities of park sports reserves. We've got our team who've landed the sediment, our issues. We've got Brett Butlin, the whole INS area. Oops, I think this is definitely Oscar time, so I will move on because that list is very, very big. You've got 1,000 staff, Mr. Chief Executive, or 10,000 staff, and I want to acknowledge them all. Actually, I think I said a little bit today about my concern that the politics is creeping into our treatment of staff, and that is unfair and unfounded, and it just needs to stop. Without our staff, we are nothing, and our partnership with staff is everything. We can critique, and we can change, and we can feed back, but we shouldn't behave the way that we behave sometimes around this table. The very best council advice I had was from my council mum, Dame Janet Close. I keep saying that because I think it's about time that happened, so I think if I say it enough, it'll happen. But Dame Janet said to me, always respect the staff, and I think that has been the most precious advice I could have ever got. Thank you, Janet. So I do want to do some thank yous, and we're nearly there, guys. Thank you for listening. To my closest staff colleagues, and these are the people I've worked with at a really close level. To Shazzy for helping me be the Deputy Mayor of Waitakere. We used to threaten to lock Shazzy in the stationery cupboard at times, and she survived that. No, it was a standing joke. Oh gosh, don't make jokes about things like that around the council table because it will come back to bite you. But Shaz, you've been extraordinary, and if anyone who knows Shaz just gently did run Waitakere City. To Kerry Harrington, who helped me be the Deputy Mayor of Auckland. Kerry's an utter legend and an extraordinary woman, and Mr. Chief Executive, I'm glad that you have her helping you run the city now. Also Claire and Catherine Syme, who's here, added the intellectual grunt to the work that I've done. I'm very lucky to have Sean, who's supporting me at the moment, and particularly supporting me during this transition time. Sean, you're extraordinary. And to Rachel, Maraika, Kariana and Julie, who are part of Team Linda and Penny, we've been really blessed with incredible people. So speaking of incredible people, my Deputy Chair for Environment and Community, Alf Filipaina, Councillor Filipaina, my lord, is the kindest and most generous human being I think any of you will ever meet. Alf does things behind the scenes to manakitanga, to love, to spread his aroha through the staff, through the organisation and through the community, and it is a privilege to work with you, Alf. I thank you again, Mr Mayor, not only for the committee, but for a chance to work so closely with Alf. He has a very special role to play around this council table. So thank you, Alf, from the bottom of my heart. To my wonderful ward mate, Linda Cooper, who's been a friend for 27 years. Linda, your bravery and your silliness with me, you need someone that you can laugh with, and whether the staff cope or not, we do laugh a lot together. You're a fantastic councillor, and Auckland needs your integrity, your honesty and your frankness around the table. Even if they don't always appreciate it, they need it. So thank you for your support and your amazingly hard work. You absolutely rock. Mr Mayor, you've worked us out, finally. You've worked out the strengths and weaknesses of local government. You've got a really clear idea of what needs to be done, and you've got the steady hands to achieve it. What you need now is a council who'll put aside petty politics, who'll focus with you on Auckland, her people and her future. And I really do wish you all the very best for the election. You're a good bloke. And at the moment, it's very hard to find a good bloke in political leadership. So kia ora and aroha to you. I've got some lovely friends who are here in the audience. My darling friend Meredith, Lynette, I've got my family who are here, and I'll acknowledge them in a moment. But I also want to acknowledge Sir John, and we're going to hear from you soon. Sir John, you are one of the good blokes in politics. You've been a supportive friend and a quiet strength over the last 9 years, and I just want to mihi to you and say thank you for that. I was going to say it's taken me a long time to get over my kind of awe of being in the same room as Sir John. I haven't quite managed that. I am still in awe of being in the same room as one of New Zealand's greatest heroes, and you will be missed. So I just acknowledge that deeply from the bottom of my heart. And occasionally when I've needed a hug, you've been there. Kia ora. Thank you, Sir John. So to my wonderful family, and that's always where it does get hard, to my Paul and Rob, to my James who's in the UK and who'll be seeing this, to the Sarahs. Both my boys have partners called Sarah, which is very confusing. To Jack, Elsa May and Lucy, my 3 grandchildren, and to my lovely cousin Fiona Tailton, who has been, who's taken the time to be here today. It's lovely to see you, so thank you very much. I'm hoping that I may learn to be a bit of granny. I may have more time for our family. You may not cope with that, but you'll be getting more of me. For my friends, you may be seeing more of me as well, and particularly to people like Meredith and Shazzy, you've hung in there over this time and been patient and waited for friendship. I hope I can deliver. And finally, to my wonderful, wonderful Paul. You've been extraordinary. I think the Mayor put it well when he said that it is the partners who give up a huge amount when your spouse is in politics. It's incredibly hard, and I know sometimes I've had to wrestle that tire iron from your fingers as you've wanted to deal to some of the trolls that I've had to deal with. But my love, gratitude, and my absolute gratefulness for everything, Paul, is just a wonderful thing to be able to say that publicly. You are my rock, and you always will be. So finally, elected members, staff, people I may have missed out on, you are good people. There's a huge amount of good around this table. There's absolute capacity in every single one of you to step away from some of the places that you've been drawn into, and I think to make Auckland the place that it deserves to be and to give our staff the partners that they deserve, we need to step up to the plate and get on with partnering up with our mayor, with the Auckland community, and getting the mahi done. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
You're going to sing your waiata.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just going to sing the waiata. Oh, I won't do this. I'm just going to sing a waiata with Josephine and I. We're a duo, and it's appropriate that for Penny, and we've got one for Sir John as well. So we're going to start off with Tu Tere Mai Ngā Iwi. Okay. Tu tere mai ngā iwi, tātou tātou e. Tu tere mai ngā iwi, tātou tātou e. Whai a te marangatanga, me te aroha e ngā iwi, ki a patapatahi, ki a patahira. Tātou, tātou e, tātou, tātou e. Sia wai.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Well, that was an absolutely amazing, stunning speech from the heart, and I think all of us here saw the character of Penny, her courage, her commitment, her values, her belief, her passion for a better city. Now, I don't know how you thank somebody for that service, but there are 2, and I will call them token efforts, that we can make to recognise that service. Now, unless you've got really good eyesight, you probably won't be able to see this very clearly, but I invite everybody to come and see this picture taken in 1992 at the Waitakere Council. And Mayor Bob, you'll recognise, but there's this absolutely stunning woman standing beside him. We all mature and learn wisdom. And there's a yeah. I've been given advice by Councillor Simpson to stop, and I think that's appropriate. So I want to present this to Penny, but I also want to announce that reflecting on Penny's legacy at the local government level, we have decided to create the Penny Holst Supreme Environment Award for the Mural Conservation Awards. And it's a payment of $5,000 to the person that is the best of the best each year at those conservation awards. And that undoubtedly will be recycled back into an environmental project. But that will be something that remains as long as this council to recognise your work and your passion for the environment, Penny. So thank you very much. And where's the photographer? Come on. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, from one legend to another legend, it's my huge privilege to acknowledge Sir John Walker. Long after most of us are forgotten around this table, Sir John will be remembered for his contribution as a sporting hero in this country. There won't be one of us in this room that don't remember that picture, John, of those flowing locks. I used to have hair like that as well. I never ran that fast though. And how you made all of us as New Zealanders so proud with your achievements and the world records that you held in athletics for the mile, for the 2,000 metres, and of course winning gold at the 1,500 metres at Montreal, at the Montreal Olympics. John was a Manukau City Councillor for 12 years, and he served 3 terms on the Auckland Council, a total of 21 years in representing his community. I think that, you know, of all of his achievements, one of the ones that he will be most proud of was being the founding chairperson of the Sir John Walker Find Your Field of Dreams Foundation. That was established 11 years ago and still going strong, John. And one metric of the achievement of that program that you founded was that in 2017, you hit the record of 1 million free swimming lessons for young Aucklanders that might never have been able to afford to do that. It's my huge privilege to welcome Sir John to the lectern and ask you, John, to deliver your valedictory.
Thank you, Phil. This speech is going to be quarter the size of Penny's. How time flies. 26 years ago, after retiring from athletics, a friend suggested I put my name forward for the position of one of the 4 councillors for the Mural Award. It was a fitting move for me. I was raised in Mural, and it seemed a perfect way for me to repay my hometown for the love and support that I received as a child and then during my long-running career. I've been very lucky to have served under 3 excellent mayors. Sir Barry Curtis was a visionary, and under his guidance Manukau flourished. Len Brown, who Len is here today, had the difficult job of amalgamating the newly structured super cities. I'm so grateful to him for encouraging the creation of my charity, Find Your Field of Dreams, which is growing from strength to strength, which I'm very proud of. Mayor Phil Goff is a diligent and motivated leader. I wish him every success in the upcoming elections. I know that Auckland City is in good and capable hands. Good luck, Phil. I've enjoyed my years as a councillor. I feel proud of the work that has been achieved and the decisions made. for we've allowed Auckland to grow into a beautiful and sophisticated city it is today. Very exciting times ahead. The last years have been very difficult for me, and I would like to thank you, councillors and staff, for all your compassion and understanding. To the councillors that have helped me out of my chair and bought me tea and coffee, thank you. You know who you are. A special mention to my very good friend, Paul Young, who has been kind and very helpful. To my wife, Helen, and my family, and especially Tim, thank you for your help and support. A great deal of gratitude to Melissa. Thank you for everything you've done to help me. Goodbye, everybody, and good health.
Well done, my friend. And you'll remember those days. I had to look hard to find you. It was from 1998. I'll just say a few words and then make the presentation.
We'll just get the Waiata, because it just...
Waiata first?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's okay. Just ask Sir John and his family, and they also for us is the Waiata. And the Waiata we're going to sing is Te Aroha. We all know that, translated in English is may the faith, love, faith and peace be amongst us all. So look, I'll start it off because I've got a high voice. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mari e tātou tātou e. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much, Alf, and thank you, Sir John, for your comments and again for your service. And we also came up with a photo, and this one you're going to have to look even more closely at. But it's Sir John on the left, looking the most casual, John. Looking the most casual, and the youngest, I think, of the Manukau Council in 1998, I think that was taken. But we thought that this will remind you of your early days on council, but as an acknowledgement, and particularly of the Sir John Walker Find Your Field of Dreams Foundation, I will be making a $5,000 donation from the Mural funds to your foundation. And thank you so much for that legacy that will last forever in terms of what we can do for the young people, the next generation of Aucklanders, and to acknowledge your commitment to Mana Rewa. And, you know, some of us go through Mana Rewa quite a lot, some maybe not so much, but there is this fantastic statue of Sir John that I had the opportunity to be with when it was unveiled on the Great South Road in the heart of Mana Rewa. And that legacy will also last for a very, very long time. South Auckland and Mana Rewa are really proud of you, John. Now, we will now adjourn the council meeting. We've got a light lunch being served down in the council chamber, and we will resume at, let's make it 12:45. That gives us an hour. Oh, sorry, just before councillors go, I am reminded that there are two small items on our agenda, if I can find them, that we can deal with. There's no extraordinary items, and I'll move at this stage. The next item that we will be considering after lunch is the confidential agenda and the adoption of our annual report and the Office of the Auditor General briefing. So I'll move at this point that we will move into confidential for those hearings. It's been seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour say aye. To the